Welcome to the Project Management Prepcast, the key to PMP exam success. Here's your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Project Management Plan. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. In part 1, we covered the basics of the Project Management Plan, including what it does and why it is so important to your project. In part 2 right now, we'll cover the subsidiary plans and documents that make up the Project Management Plan. In our module on the Integration Management Knowledge area, we are going to discuss the Develop Project Management Plan process in detail. Right now, we want to take a look at the inputs, because the inputs will give you an insight into how the project management plan is developed. So, to develop the project management plan, we take the inputs of all the other processes across the knowledge areas, because essentially we are creating a comprehensive plan of the plans. And those plans, they gotta come from somewhere else, right? Well, the project charter is another input, and it brings in the high-level boundaries and project purpose, and how the plan is developed is also influenced by the enterprise environmental factors, as well as the organizational process assets that are used in our organization. So as you can see, outputs from many of the other processes are integrated in this process, the Develop Project Management Plan process, to create our overall project management plan. Any baselines and subsidiary plans that are an output from other planning processes are inputs as we develop the plan. In addition, changes to these documents later on as the project progresses and moves through its stages may make it necessary to update the project management plan. So what are all these outputs from other processes? Well, let's look a little bit more into detail there and see what those documents are. Since the project management plan is in essence a plan of plans, that means these outputs from the other processes are, well, plans. They are the scope management plan, requirements management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, process improvement plan, the human resource management plan, communications management plan, risk management plan, procurement management plan, stakeholder management plan, all developed as part of other processes, of other knowledge areas, as we are planning quality, risk, communications, human resources, the scope, etc. The project management plan that we are going to create, even though we have so many inputs, may either be a summary level or detailed, based on each of these subsidiary plans. We're not going to review all of these in detail in this lesson, but we're going to pick the most important ones for you. Did you notice that on the previous slide, every single one of those subsidiary items we mentioned had the word plan in them? But there's more than just the plans that are contained within the project management plan as subsidiary items, because there are 3 documents, 3 components that are not plans but are still considered to be part of the project management plan. There is first of all the schedule baseline. This is pretty much your approved and signed timeline, your approved schedule that tells you when you have to be finished with the project. Then there is the cost performance baseline. Like the schedule baseline, the cost performance baseline is your signed and approved budget. And then there is also the scope baseline. Again, a signed and approved baseline for your project, which, by the way, consists itself of 3 subsidiary documents, which are the scope statement, your work breakdown structure, the WBS, as well as your WBS dictionary. So all of these plans from the previous slide, as well as these documents here, they make up your project management plan, as these are the subsidiary plans, the subsidiary documents that we consistently refer back to. In regards to these subsidiary plans and the subsidiary documents, you as the project manager should know how they are used, how they are updated, how they are implemented, and also what the objective of each of these plans and documents is. We will be reviewing a selection of these subsidiary plans and the subsidiary documents that make up your project management plan in just a moment. But we won't go too deep into these because we will meet them again later on in other lessons where they are developed and created, and we discuss each of these, their individual components and how you create them in very much detail. The idea right now is to give you a feeling of what these plans and documents are and how they are structured and how they are related to each other. We begin with the scope management plan. The scope management plan is, of course, a component of your project management plan that describes how the scope will be defined, developed, monitored, controlled, and verified. The plan is also used to control what is in and out of the scope of the project. So there's a clear specification in your scope management plan that says these parts are in the scope and these parts are out of scope for our project. For instance, we're going to build your house, but we're not going to build your swimming pool. This goes a long way to help you manage stakeholder expectations. The plan can be very detailed, or it can be formal, or it can be loosely framed and informal. It all depends very much on the needs of your project. Next, we have the schedule management plan, which establishes the criteria and the activities for developing, monitoring, and controlling the schedule. The schedule management plan establishes how schedule management will be carried out in the project. It serves as guidance for the scheduling process and formats and defines the roles and responsibilities for stakeholders in those processes. Note, this is not the detailed schedule information. So we're not talking about your schedule here that is part of our overall project management plan. We're talking about the plan to develop the schedule, the plan that explains how the information in the schedule will be captured, expressed, and modified if or when necessary. The schedule management plan is used by project managers and the project office to define how management practices will be conducted. In some organizations, it may be standardized as a document, or it may be applied across multiple projects in such a standardized fashion and modified only slightly to reflect the individual resource and delivery requirements of your particular project. But you're using a standard schedule management plan that your organization has as a template. It is used to prevent project managers from reinventing the process of creating the schedule every time that we start up a new project. Money doesn't grow on trees, you know. That's why it's very important for your project to have a cost management plan as one of the subsidiary items in your overall project management plan. So the cost management plan is that component of your project management plan that describes how costs will be planned, structured, and controlled. And just to be safe, with the schedule management plan, I said this is not your schedule that we're including. It's the plan that defines how the schedule is developed. It's the same here. In regards to the cost management plan, this is not the budget that is included. Instead, it's the plan that defines how your budget is going to be developed. The exact nature of a cost management plan will vary greatly depending on your particular project. However, generally speaking, it is the group of processes that tries to ensure that you, as the project manager, can complete your project within the approved budget. Some of the cost management plans that I have seen, they were highly detailed, while others, they take on a broader aspect that look more at the big picture of cost management. This is all depending on your experience as a project manager and the projects, the type of projects that you are leading. You will have more or less need for a clearly defined cost management plan, though it will still be required that you follow it to the letter. The exact nature of the cost management plan is really dependent on the interest and needs of all the project stakeholders that are involved in your project. But generally speaking, the cost management plan defines how you estimate your cost, how you budget your cost, and also how you monitor and control your cost throughout the life of your project. We are moving on to the quality management plan, which is that component of your project management plan that describes how an organization's quality policies will be implemented on your project. The quality management plan that you create for your project describes how you and the project management team are going to implement your organization's quality policy. This is important to realize. It's not your job on the project to define how your company thinks about quality. Instead, it is expected that your company has a quality policy, and it is your job on the project to implement that quality policy that your senior management has issued on your project. That's how we as an organization look at quality, this quality policy. That's how we look at it, and how we manage quality, how we produce quality. And then you take this policy issued by your senior management and you translate it into your project, into your quality management plan. The quality management plan therefore provides guidance on how quality will be ensured on the project, through design reviews, through documentation, and through other protocols that you define as you translate the quality policy into the quality management plan. It gives management and the customer a clear understanding how quality will be maintained on your project and what documentation they can expect addressing quality issues during the life of your project. The next component that we selected for you here is the staffing management plan. It is itself a component of the overall human resources management plan and describes when and how project team members will be acquired and how long they will be needed. A staffing management plan is ultimately a document that explains the various human resource requirements and processes that will be met for both staff management and employees alike. It can contain information like staff acquisition and release. When are we bringing people on and when are we releasing them again? And this is just slightly different than what I said earlier. Earlier I said how project team members will be acquired and how long they will be needed. For example, there we would describe that we are going to place job ads on websites for engineers that we're looking for, and these people then have to go through our regular acquisition process, our regular hiring process, and we need, by the way, an engineer for 6 months. And then under acquisition and release, we're going to say, this engineer that we hired in part 1 of this here that we need for 6 months, he needs to come on in January and leave again in July of next year. So that's the slight difference there, the how and the overall definition versus when exactly is this going to happen. Okay, enough of that. Moving on. Then we also have resource calendars and their training needs that are described in the staffing management plan. Resource calendars, they tell you when people are available, and training needs, of course, tell you what their skills are, or rather their lack of skills, and what we may have to do in order to bring them up to speed. We talk about recognition and rewards in the staffing management plan. Everybody wants to be recognized, and how are we going to do this on our project? Compliance and safety is another discussion. This is especially important if you have some form of a construction project going on. And of course, finally, the content of your project staffing management plan is really determined by the project type and the project size. So the creation of the staffing management plan is tailored to your business and to your project, and it's imperative to the overall success in your daily management of the project team. So as we have learned on the previous slide, the staffing management plan is part of the human resources management plan. It's a subsidiary document of that plan. So are there any other documents, anything else that's part of the human resources management plan? Yes, there is. The human resources management plan consists on a high level of these three documents here. It consists of the roles and responsibilities that your human resources will have. It consists of the organizational chart that shows how your project is organized, and as we have just learned, it contains also the staffing management plan. We're going to delve a lot deeper into the human resources management plan and how it is developed and what we find inside of it and all these three subsidiary documents in our lessons on human resources management. The idea right now is just to show you that all of these items become integral parts of your overall project management plan, and therefore they become, shall we say, instructions on how you manage your project overall. And talking about instructions, the communications management plan is full of them. It describes how, when, and by whom information about the project will be administered and disseminated. Again, it doesn't talk about the communication itself. It doesn't talk about what will be inside of the newsletter in detail, or what will the content of each and every status report be. It just tells you how, when, and by whom this information is going to have to be developed, created, and sent out. So the communications management plan is the written document that outlines, highlights, and details communication needs and expectations for the entire project. Which of your stakeholders expect what type of communication? This can include specific communication technologies that are required, such as the need for dedicated cell phones so that the project team members can keep in touch all the time, as well as specific update formats, such as the need for a weekly email update, or perhaps the need for a weekly conference call. But again, it only describes the how, the when, the what, the why, but not the exact content and nature of the communication. This is done as your project progresses. Are you starting to see the big picture here? Are you starting to see how these various subsidiary plans that we've looked at so far define the processes, the structure, the approach, the methods, and the tools that we will use on our project? But they don't describe the exact nature. This is just the plan, how we are going to do it once we get to that point, and we have to actually execute these tasks. If you do, then it's going to be rather simple for you to figure out what the risk management plan does, because it is a component of our overall project management plan, and therefore it describes how risk management activities will be structured and how they will be approached. The information in the risk management plan, of course, varies by application area and project size. If you have a smaller project, your risk management plan is going to be a lot smaller than if you are trying to send a man to Mars. The risk management plan, again, is different from your risk register. The risk register contains, or will contain, long time in the future of our project here, the list of project risks, the result of risk analysis, as well as the risk responses. In the risk management plan, however, we are going to define that we will use a risk register, and we will create via brainstorming a list of risks, and these results, they will then be analyzed, and we will develop risk responses. So at the very beginning of the project, we have the risk management plan that defines all of this, and we have an empty risk register that we're going to fill by following the processes outlined in the risk management plan. Since all projects involve some degree of risk, a project risk management plan is necessary to define and document those procedures that will be used to manage risk throughout the life of the project. Risk can be understood as any factor that potentially interferes with the completion of the project. Therefore, it follows that by recognizing potential problems, you as the project manager and your core team members can avoid most, if not all, of these problems through proper and early action. And this then takes us to the last of the select management plans that we want to look at here in our overview, and that is the procurement management plan. The procurement management plan is a part of your overall project management plan, and it describes how a project team will acquire goods and services from outside of the performing organization. It describes how you will execute your procurement processes, starting from developing procurement documentation all the way through closing your contracts. So these are not the actual contracts that we're going to include. Instead, this is how will we find products? How will we select a seller? How are we going to issue purchasing orders for any and all of the products that we may need to purchase from the outside? It's the processes, the structure, the approach, the methods, and the tools that are described in this plan. The procurement management plan describes the activities that are necessary in order to conduct procurements, administer procurements, and then later on to close your procurements as well. As we have learned earlier on in this lesson, the overall project management plan doesn't just consist of subsidiary plans, it also consists of some subsidiary documents. And one of these documents that we want to look at here to close out this lesson is the scope baseline. The scope baseline is the approved version of your scope statement, your work breakdown structure, as well as the associated WBS dictionary. That can all be changed only through formal change control procedures, and they are used as a basis for comparison. If you have a clear scope statement, a clear scope defined, that can help you in avoiding misunderstanding with your stakeholders, because everybody knows exactly what the scope of your project is if it was shown to them and they actually had to sign and approve it. So the scope baseline, just like your overall project management plan, is not really just one document. It's a collection of these three other documents here that together make up the scope baseline. The scope statement, WBS, and WBS dictionary. Together, they are the scope baseline. They are then approved, and it becomes part as a subsidiary document of your overall project management plan. So let's open this up and briefly take a look at these three documents here: the scope statement, the WBS, and the WBS dictionary. So the project scope statement is the description of the project scope. It describes the major deliverables as well as the assumptions and constraints that we have on our project. It will also include a high-level description of the work. Overall, it provides a documented basis for making future project decisions, also for confirming or developing a common understanding of the project scope among the stakeholders, so that everybody knows this is the scope that we are aiming at on our project. Now here is something that is quite different from what we have seen previously in this lesson. All the subsidiary plans, they talk about structure, methods, tools, techniques that will be used throughout our project. The scope statement, on the other hand, this is the scope. This contains the defined scope for our project. So this is not a plan. This is the actual definition of what we are going to produce on our project. And it's the same for the WBS and the WBS dictionary. They aren't plans. They are the actual description of our project scope, each describing it from a slightly different angle. The work breakdown structure is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work that has to be carried out by the project team so that we can accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. The work breakdown structure subdivides the project scope into smaller, more manageable pieces, with each descending level of the structure representing an increasingly more detailed definition of the project work. And then at the very lowest level of this chart, of this breakdown structure, that's what we call the work package. That's where people can actually start working on delivering project results. The WBS dictionary, on the other hand, is a document that provides detailed deliverable activity and schedule information about each component in the work breakdown structure. It really describes what it is that needs to be done. It is a detailed project scope definition and description, and is used to verify that the deliverables that are being produced and accepted are part of the approved scope. And that concludes our review of the subsidiary plans and the subsidiary documents of the project management plan. Let's review. The project management plan is an important document for the PMP exam as well as for your project, and that is pretty much an understatement. Though many people do not really make that distinction correctly, we have to be clear and repeat: the project management plan is not your project schedule. The project management plan is an approved document that describes how a project is executed, and the schedule shows project activities on a timeline. The project management plan is not a single document. Instead, it is a collection of many other subsidiary management plans like the cost, risk, or schedule management plan. It also consists of other documents like the scope baseline, the schedule baseline, or the cost performance baseline. And, as you have heard me say many times in this lesson, all the management plans may be formal, informal, they may be highly detailed, they may be broadly framed. All of that is based on the needs, the size, the type of your project. And with that, we have come to the end of this lesson. So it's time for Justine to say,
Goodbyes are not forever. Goodbyes are not the end. They simply mean I'll miss you until we meet again.
And of course I say, until next time.